Hi, still good morning. My name is Szymon Serwatka and I work for Dassault Systèmes. Dassault Systèmes is a French-owned company, one of the top 10 largest software producers in the world. And I manage technical training for the Delmia brand, which has one of its main offices here in Kraków. So what I want to talk to you about today is something that is related to a business story, because I know that in this conference you talk about different kind of subjects. There's a lot of different technologies, different tools, different methodologies, how to create content. But it's also important that we have a chance to talk about some business cases, real life stories. So I want to tell you the story from last year, where we went through quite a lot of good, very positive change. We managed to change our technical training from purely classroom to a blended classroom and self-paced. We managed to build good relationships with a lot of different teams, breaking the walls of silos in the organization. We managed to align the training to a matrix of skills, which we also started. And we expanded the training program by adding a certification exam. So this is something that we did last year, and we never did this before, and this brought our technical training to a brand new league. So in terms of content, where we came from, we have always had technical training, like most companies. The question is, who provides content, how it is done. So traditionally, we work with R&D organization, because training was part of product development. The challenge with this was that R&D is very knowledgeable about the product, but they have very few contact with customers. While we have an implementation side of the company, which does a lot of implementation, so they know what kind of issues we have. For example, if we need to connect our system to 1,000 machines in a factory in Turkey, for example. So one of the changes that we did, we managed to go through a content that was provided by teams developing the product, and we moved to working more with experts who actually have many years of experience in the field. And also in terms of the materials, we did quite a lot of change, because traditionally, when we deliver our training only as a classroom, we had 2 weeks of training. They start Monday at 9, they finish on Friday at 3 p.m. And people go through the training step by step with the trainer. We used printed training materials. So this means that before the training, a couple of weeks before the training, we had to make sure that things are printed, they are shipped. So we spent a few hours in the office to coordinate the printing. Then when we finally had the materials shipped, my hands were full of dust. I had dust in my lungs, and we had fingers cut on the paper edges. But it was on the way, and hopefully the package would arrive at our destination in time and will arrive at the right person. So this was quite a lot of burden, to be honest. And now, last year, we decided that we don't want to print materials anymore. It's old-fashioned. It's too much pain. We want to go online, and this is what we did. We went to online training. We created SCORM packages. We published them on an LMS platform. So now the materials are very easily accessed. People have people have access to them during the training and after the training. There is no way to misplace them. And also one thing that we did, that the classroom training was more structured around the days, so it was just one flow of training. And because we changed to a self-paced, we had to analyze the training content and cut it into smaller chunks, so that people, when students take the training on a self-paced basis, they should have a clear milestones where to stop or where to resume work, because they will not have time to do all the training in one go. So we decided to split our 5 days of training into about 20 different modules. These modules are for 1 to 3 hours, and we allow about 4 weeks for our students to go through this training material. And one of the things that we also achieved, we included a lot of real-life scenarios in our training, because in the old world, sometimes I heard the comment that from the student that a student is going through the training, and probably around Wednesday afternoon they start to understand what exactly they are doing and what the system is really for and how they can start applying this. So we work with experts to make sure that a lot of this realistic context is brought into the training much sooner. And in terms of environment, this was our third level of challenge. So this is a photo from one of my first training classes when I joined this company 5 years ago. I joined as a technical trainer myself. And one of the first trainings we did was in China for one prospect. It was a very interesting experience, particularly that we always try to restrict the number of participants to 12 people, but by the time we communicated to our Chinese colleagues, we already had 25 people signed up for training. So we had 2 trainers, so we decided, okay, so I go with my colleague and I take half of the class, and the other person takes half of the other half of the class, and we deliver the training. And this is the photo that we took from the session, so you can see the setup. There's one very important piece. It's not this flower, it's what is just right behind it. It's a desktop, which was a training server we used to travel with to every hour training. So we always had to have very strong people delivering the training, not only with strong voice, but also with strong arms and backs to carry all the luggage around. And we had tons of cables. Everybody had to have a laptop. And with laptops, we had a lot of challenges because our software requires quite a lot of installation steps, and different customers have different security policies on the IT. So this means that on one laptop, I could install our software within 20 minutes, and on another laptop, this took, let's say, 2 days, because we had to open 12 IT tickets to give privileges to connect to different pieces. So this was quite a pain. And as part of this change, we decided to go to a training server in the cloud. And we found a very good provider. The name of the company is ReadyTech. And they provide training. They provide a service which allows to host training servers in the cloud. And now, when we have a training session, all I need to do, I open a ticket, and within 20 minutes, I have 10 links to 10 instances of our training server, and every student has its own training machine. And this is quite a big change, because in the old world, everybody was on one machine. So if someone did not listen properly to the instructor from the trainer, it could be that 2 people from the same room are using the same user ID, and they are just overwriting the configuration. And then we as the trainers were just wondering what is really happening. But there were like 3 people connected as TRN6, for example. So now in this new world, we close this gap, because now every student has his or her own instance of the server. There's only one person present on the server. And this ReadyTech company, what they really do very well, what I need is to make sure that I can replicate my master training server to as many instances as I need, and they do it within several minutes. So it's very quick, very efficient, very reliable. And now what I need to do, so before I had to send to the students the list, probably a 2 pages document with the list of different software they need to install. Now I send just one link, and I say just run this link from the network where you deliver training, and make sure all the checkboxes are green, because all it checks is the internet connection. So this is quite a very, very, very big, very important change. Yeah, so I talked that we changed the content, we changed the form of the training materials, we also changed the infrastructure. And this could sound easy, but in fact it was not easy, because it is not only about our skills of our technical training team, what we can do in terms of how we work with PowerPoint, how we work with different content management tools, how we work with the servers. It's also about seizing an opportunity in the organization where all planets align and you see a green light to what you want to do. So that's why I really like this picture, because this is really the moment of creation, that there are two different, let's say, areas of potential, and if they are separate, nothing happens. You know, only when they link together, then something really happens, and there is a change. So all these things that I talked about, we wanted to do for a couple of years, and with mixed success. But last year, what happened? We got refreshed management, and the management started to look into how we build our business. We got very aggressive sales targets, and the question is, okay, how to enable our partners, how to enable our employees worldwide, and we do it efficiently. Because if I train 20 people in a quarter, then I can still go the old way. But if I have 100 or 1,000 people, what exactly am I going to do? We will not hire 200 new trainers and have 200 more desktops. So this was the key factor for us, that the business really recognized that there is a business benefit in going through the change. So that's why what is really important, that we had a stakeholder commitments. There was a strategic decision to move to online training. We also had a strategic decision to create and implement skills map. This was a decision for us also from the business. This was not part of our work in the training team, but because we learned about this, we also thought that we need to make sure that what we do in our training team is part of the corporate DNA. So this means as much as our training activities are linked to the more general, let's say, more important business processes, then we have a better chance really to be successful. We have a better chance to get visibility, what we do, and we have a better chance to get resources that we need. Yeah. Yes, so all these ideas that we had, all the skills that we had, and the training and the commitment from the stakeholders allowed us to make this change from classroom training to a blended classroom self-paced training. So what we did, we analyzed and restructured existing training content. So this is about making sure that all the content is not only technically correct, but it's also meaningful. So what was really very critical in this place was working with people who use our tool, so that could tell us a story, which we could use as a backbone to the exercises that we take people with. So one of the examples was, we have a module about how our system connects to machines on the shop floor. And we had an idea from one of our implementation for a factory which produces sugar and has 20 plus sugar factories across Europe. And one of the pieces of the solution was to control the counting of the boxes of sugar that were going on the conveyor belt, and they had to be counted before they were packed by a machine onto a pallet. So we used just these counters and a weight, which is checking whether the box is really 1,000 grams or perhaps or not 900, and everything that is under or overweight is pushed from the conveyor belt as something to be reused. So this gave us a good idea to say, okay, so we have two counters. One is counting all this incoming to the weight. Then you have a counter that is calculating what is leaving the belt after some boxes are pushed. And then both numbers are reported to the system, and we are able to show a ratio of good production. Yeah. So this is an example of a realistic case scenario where we can show our tools now in a much more meaningful way, and everybody can imagine how exactly this works. We also collected feedback for the main pain points. So we talked to our customers, we talked to our experts, and we incorporated a lot of good ideas. I already mentioned that we cut the overall content into smaller blocks. Our idea was really to cut it into 1 hour block, but some items are a bit more complex than others, and we could not really make a logical and fitting split. So we decided that some of the blocks, they have 3 hours, but altogether We have several blocks, and we also divided this one training program into 4 different pieces that we can present and explain better. And I think I already mentioned the realistic summary exercises. And in terms of working culture, which is a very important element in what we do, in whether we are successful or not, or perhaps successful differently, is really to make sure that we can build good commitment with the experts, because I'm sure that everybody has a bigger or smaller struggle with experts. You know, experts are always busy. Experts are always booked 120% of projects. They don't really have time to sit down with me and talk, and they are impatient that I don't understand what they're talking about. So what we also had to do on our end was also to adjust our mode of working, the way we communicate, the way we manage progress, to the group that we work, that we mostly work with our services organization, with the expert. And that's why this Roman saying, "Si fueris Rome, Romano vivito more," which I hope it means, if you live in Rome, act as Romans do. So to us, this meant that, you know, we really had to make sure that we work with our services organization. They are very much result-oriented. They work quick. They want to report progress. So we had to make sure that whatever we did with them was properly planned, was properly communicated, not only to the experts, but also to the managers, so that we build trust and commitment from both managers and experts to what we want to do. And this was very successful, and we managed to do it. And I think this was probably one of the most important things that really helped us to achieve the success and to get visibility, and also to get resources to more projects which we are currently doing in this year. I already mentioned that one of the ways to be successful in the large corporation in particular is to make sure that whatever we do is linked to a wider context. Because if, for example, I would restrict myself only to managing training, then I live only in a small training world, and the other streams in the organization, like sales, like marketing, like implementation, they live in their own worlds, and we don't really talk. So to me, one of the key things was to make sure that whatever we do, whatever the change we are making, that we communicate with other teams, so we are becoming part of a corporate DNA. And we used, so what we used in particular, we leveraged an initiative in a services organization that finally they decided to build a skill matrix, and they decided to manage the skills of the employees in a much better way. And then we got involved in the discussion, and I could say, okay, so if you have these skills for this role, this means that we already have training content for these. Here we have one little gap. So how about we don't talk about the training title like it was. We'll just make a few more changes, and then you will be able to provide level 1 training for one of your roles in your organization. So we provided more business context to this. And this clicked very well, and we did exactly this. And another example I can give you, but this is from a sister company. What they managed to achieve, they convinced their corporate CEO that training is so important that when all top management meets every week, they review a dashboard, and the training certification is part of the dashboard. So it's not somewhere separate that is done on the side. When the CEO goes with the C-level managers through the list, he asks about sales, about implementations, about number of software licenses that are sold, but he also asks how many people have you trained, how many people have you certified. So this places the training organization in a completely different light. Okay, so I talked a lot already. I'm already tired, and so there are 2 more slides, and it's about the certification program. So perhaps someone from the audience wants to talk. Oh, welcome. Come over. What is your name?
Hello, everyone.
So do you remember your name?
Yes, I think, okay. Yeah. So exciting. So my name is Gosia Pytel, and I am an instructional designer, e-learning developer. I used to work with Szymon and Dassault Systems. I'm also a design thinking coach. And I just want to finish off that great journey with a little commentary on ending it with a certification program. Thank you. Okay. As Szymon mentioned, this is a technical training environment, so it is a little harder. And coming back to Alan's talk about training versus teaching, and then adding your heart and brain to whatever you're doing, this is where we needed to put our hearts first because of the technicality. It's not a lot of things that you can do with a technical training. You can do cool animations. You can do engaging video. You need to make them actually go through some exercises. So that's why the challenge was a little higher. And I'm going to start with a Roman quotation of my own that means we're prepared for battle. So we put our hearts and we believed in the cause, and that's what we wanted to communicate with the certification.
So you could see I was the good cop and she was the bad cop in this project.
Don't be fooled. And when you think certification, it doesn't really bring out fuzzy, warm feelings. Usually the reaction is, oh, I have to do another exam, I have to sit in and do something that is required of me. So that's where our hearts were needed to progress the journey. So what we did first, we joined the corporate program. We did a little internal market analysis just to find out if people are already doing it. We tried to communicate with them and get some input from them, maybe some advice, and see how we can tailor our program to make people more engaged in it. So we had the commitment and we had the brand identification because we knew that it was already being done by some other teams. Then we recruited internal experts. And it was already, Szymon mentioned, that it's really hard because they're already overbooked. They have their own tasks that you need to do. So when someone comes into them and asks them to do an additional task, it's usually just a hard wall to get through to them. So this is, again, the heart, because we would go to them, present why they were needed, why their expertise was needed, how they could provide their expertise, and how they can shine and show that they know what they're talking about. It's not only sitting behind a computer, configuring programs. For them, it was a chance to go in, be part of the commitment, be part of the journey, and show their expertise. So that worked very, very well because everyone wants to be recognized for what they're doing. Then the next thing that we did, we coordinated the work between different subject matter experts and different people. So we would get them together so they can change their point of view. This is very important because some people would go from one team, some other people are from different team, and they write in a different way. They have different point of view on things. So we would get them together online or in person, depending, and then we'll get them to share their ideas, see and learn from each other. Just exchange their inspiration. And therefore, some of our experts would leave with a different idea and then different approach, and they'll be like, okay, I didn't think of that. So now I'm going to try and do it in a different way. And then we try to follow that commitment and their work and present their work to wider audience. So we would put it on the certification website and would make it official. So the whole across the board company knew about the certification going up, about people that were involved, about the work that they did, and the quality of work that they did and provided. So they again got the recognition, and then the cooperation with them was much better. And we were happy because we were getting quality material. And then the examination of the whole process ended up with an exam that did not spark that disgust or didn't spark those hard feelings that you need to sit through it, because it was done by people who were involved in the application and involved in the process of creating the examination. So they had this connection because it was something that they nurtured as well. It wasn't long, it was just the right width. And it allowed them to actually progress from the moment of entering the exam and figuring out those 50, 60 questions and passing, not passing, going through the journey of questions and trying to and progress from their knowledge and see how they added their value to the certification. It was a good mix of hard, and we didn't want, according to theories, and we didn't want this exam to be really hard or really easy. It was more about actually giving them the learning experience and showing out their work. Therefore, everyone could pass. Depending on how well they did their research and how well they actually liked the exam. But it was something, it gave them something to work for, and it gave them a little smile at the end that what they did actually provided value for other people, and they could see their own work reflected in it. And that's how the examination is at this moment, and that how it happened. From that one small exam, Szymon now is continuing the journey to add more exams to it, and now people are more willing to actually take part in it. They're more willing to see how they can contribute and how they can share their experience, which is great. So it's just a little something to show you that even in a technical company, when people are involved in programs and developing and stuff, we still manage to get them together using various methods, get them together and produce something that now works and has its life of its own. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Should I?
Oh, let's just go. If we change the world. Yeah, so thank
If we,
you, Gosia,
then
for this
you.
part. So also thank you, for being part of this project.
Thank you.
Because, we just in terms of thinking, how many people it took to do everything. So, it was me, it was Gosia, there was Joe Bauer, who is my technical trainer. He's based in California. So just the three of us, and we worked with more than 20 people in a services organization, and we made things happen. So, Gosia, thank you very much for what you did. Thank you for your help.
Thank you for listening to us as well.
Any questions?
Gosia.
Oh, God.
Switch.
I'm like, that was so nice. Questions? You're already hungry?
It's lunchtime, right? So.
Yeah. Okay, we have some questions.
Thank you. Thank you. The story of your change is amazing. I just have one question because we kind of underwent the same change. Did you ever have feedback that people missed human interaction in course of learning and training? And what was your response to it?
Yes, so clearly you cannot replace, let's say, the classical training with just only human-computer interaction. So what actually happens is that this training program only is part of the larger training curriculum. On our end from the training team, we offer weekly Q&A sessions with the webinar, and whoever has a question can talk to us. On the other hand, from the business side, these people, they don't just go through the training, they also have their mentors that they can ask questions. So that's the human interaction is not really fully eliminated. Mm-hmm. In fact, this has to be part of the experience.
And it also was part of our journey, if I can add to it, because we started with no Q&A session. Mm-hmm. And then because, fortunately for us, people would give us feedback, which is always hard to get. But in that feedback, it was actually mentioned that they're missing that factor. And then we had a little brainstorm and we figured that we have experts on our side, so we can offer them that and get them to. And it took a little while to get them to be part of that Q&A, because yet again, people have their own stuff. And usually when you set up a meeting, it's just another meeting. But if you give them value, if you show examples, they can tell you their very specific problem. So you're not giving them general examples. You're just helping them personally. That gives great results, and then also more and more people.
Thank you.
Welcome. You had a question?
Yes, we do have questions. Loads of them now.
So that first question already answered part of what I was going to ask, but I'd be really interested to hear what's next. What are you now working on to bring this to the next level? For example, using intelligence in some way. If people, you can see they keep getting certain things wrong, bring it back in the systems, build upon it that way.
So what is next? In fact, one of the results of our work last year was to expand the scope of the work for our team, because last year we were still managing training for one product of the Delmia brand. In this year we are managing all Delmia brand training, which is probably 6 times more work than we had. So what is coming next is, on one hand, since we proved that this self-paced training works, so we want to maintain this, and we just keep our eyes open to improve it, like by adding Q&A sessions, or perhaps, it may be that we'll add walkthroughs through different exercises, because sometimes people ask really simple questions that we can address in a different way than doing Q&A. But the main work stream is to increase the footprint of the training, to make sure that we don't cover just these 2 weeks of training, because in fact, when I did last year an analysis of all, because this training that I talked about was for a product that is called Aprizo, and when we started working on the skills map, we saw that in order to train on all Aprizo properly, we probably need to build about 200 training hours, and this training program is about 70. So our next step is really just to make sure that we go to the next level in terms of adding more skills and creating a much richer landscape of the training programs where people can navigate through.
Also, on the simpler level, the application is still developing. There are features being added, maybe bugs. So there's always room for extending the training and adding new units, and just adding the level of examination as well. So you can have people trained in different areas, or giving them the possibility of choosing the area that they want to specialize in. So there's always that as well.
Any more questions?
Thank you, Gosia and Szymon. Great stuff. Szymon, you mentioned business probably 4 times, the word business, so let me ask business questions. So maybe first is, how long it took to actually produce, let's say, 1 hour of the training material, and what was the output format? That's a curiosity question. And second thing is, you probably calculated the return on investment, like probably you don't have to flight that much, or you don't have to invest that much time in training, in classroom, reserve the rooms, but you had to invest the time and money into the cloud platform and stuff like that. Can you show an estimate or just give a rough overview? How do you calculate the return on investment of the whole project? Okay, so regarding the first part, so we did training in a quite simple way, I would say, because we did everything in PowerPoint, and we produced SCORM packages using iSpring add-on to PowerPoint. Really simple, very efficient. So no talking faces?
No, because one of the things that we had to do, because, again, I will say business, and, what business wants, they want to have content here and now. I think there's this organization, I think it's called Chapman Alliance. There's a website that they periodically do a survey, how long it takes to build 1 hour of training content. And it depends, whether it's very simple, it's about 20 hours, and then to something very sophisticated, is about 200 hours or perhaps more. So if you would want to do this everything in the way that would satisfy the artistic side of our soul, to build training, this would take us. We would probably still be at the beginning of the project. So one part of the decision that we had to make is exactly what is the minimum viable product for the training. So what is required so that it can work and people will complain to the degree that is acceptable to us.
And also, in terms of creating training, that's why the training team expanded with instructional designer or a developer, because then you need to, it's not a simple answer to talking heads and stuff, because it depends who's the recipient of your training. So depending on different units that we were doing, or depending on the target group, so to speak, it was designed in a different way. So there's no one definite answer to tell you how long it takes.
But we're also thinking, how long it takes to build 1 hour of training content. So with our training, which is highly interactive in the sense that we don't only build slides, but we also need to configure the training server. We need to make sure that everything is configured in the way that you can do exercises. Perhaps it's not very sophisticated and educated estimation, but it's about 8 man days for 1 hour of training. So it's about 64 hours of work to build 1 hour of training content. When we compared this to the benchmark from this Chapman Alliance analysis, they were talking about 120, 160. So when I communicate this 64 hours to business, I always show this 160 to I compare, but they see, but the moment they hear 64, they say it's too much. Yeah, so that's also one of the next things that we need to manage, because at some point I did an analysis to build all of the training, and I showed them that we'll be able to do it in 3 years, but they say, okay, sorry, but we have a business challenge here and now. So what exactly are we going to do? So this means that we'll not be building all wonderful, beautiful e-learnings that we all dream of. We just need to build something that works, that the business can be happy, and they can say, okay, we'll give you 2 more headcounts next year to build more.
So the return on investment, is there any number? Or
there are no numbers I may share.
Sorry?
There are no numbers that I may share.
Okay, anyone else with a question?
Okay, it's just a general question. I was wondering, how often do you need to create new technical training content from scratch, and how you deal with contact SMEs or specialists or people that make sure that it's technically accurate, and how to deal with it? Because as you said, the time is precious.
So you mean how often we need to build the content?
Update it?
How often do you need to create something from scratch, like new content, and how do you deal with contacting people who will make sure that it's technically accurate, as you said?
Well, for this particular project, it was half. I would say that it was half and half, because we still had something that we could work with, but it was a completely different format. And then the application changes, so when there are updates, and then it depends really on the development. So you need to be included in the circle to know beforehand when something changes. So for that project, it was, at the beginning, it was half and half, and only later there was new stuff being added. So you had to adjust to that too, and that probably was about 30-70 of old to new.
Yeah, I would say so,
Yeah.
70-30. And I think it's a very good question, because one of the experiences that I made, because if we had some, let's say, existing presentations, or someone came with an idea, or we had old training that we could just tweak somehow to build new content, this was relatively easy. But I frequently had a challenge when we want to build something completely new, and I'm trying to explain this to experts, but just starting from the empty whiteboard. And I very quickly realized that what works best is to show an example. So the moment that we had our first SCORM package that we could play to people, then it was much easier to get an understanding and commitment from experts, because they saw physically what exactly they are supposed to build. So this is one of my conclusions, that now I try to avoid any, let's say, philosophical discussions, very abstract discussions, how things should be made. We need to make quickly an example and show it to people.
Anyone else? We have one more here. Can we get a mic to Alicja?
Thank you for the great presentation. I've been curious to learn how are you going to handle possible reworks or updates of the learning content? Whether or do you have a specific plan for that, or will these updates be somehow related to releases in software, or how often will they be needed?
Okay, so we build the training content with the assumption that we will update this once a year, because it also matches our product development cycle. So this means that our R&D teams, they will always ask us to update training once a year. So this means that we are also collecting feedback from experts from trainees. Sometimes we get it by email, sometimes verbally, and we put them into a ticket tracking system as a backlog. So when the time comes that we want to make an update, then we'll review the backlog and see exactly, okay, so how much it takes to make this change? Do you want to make it here, or perhaps we'll leave it for later?
You can always also adjust it to the training cycle, which means that you need to always go back and see what changed. And you should also be on the end of going in, seeing what the change is, not only waiting for the change to come to you. So with a bigger team of developers and stuff, you can actually include it in your like daily or monthly work.
Thank you.
Last question, if you have one. Okay, no more questions.
I do.
Oh. Okay.
I wanted to fulfill one of my small dreams, if that's possible. Can we take a selfie with you and all the soapers?
You agree, guys? Yeah? Okay. Sorry for turning my back on you.
I'm guessing your hands are the longest, because mine are.
Yeah. That's why you agreed for the presentation with me, right?
All right.
I have long arms.
And everyone, 1, 2, 3, scream, Midwa!
Meaning soap?
All right, 1, 2, 3, Midwa!
Perfect, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. It was awesome. Also, thank you for swapping your slot with Alan. Yeah, thanks a lot. It was great to have you here. Everyone, let's go for lunch. Our break is going to be a little bit longer. Enjoy.